Right, let's go to that disturbing list that's been circulated by so-called progressive Palestinian activists, publishing the names of hundreds, up to about 600, I think it is, Jewish Australians. And as a consequence, they no longer feel safe in the communities where they've built their lives. The government, slow to act, woefully inadequate in my view in addressing rising anti-Semitism, is now moving to criminalise this behaviour. It's called doxing, and that's when people publish things, identifying information online about an individual with malice intent. Joining me now to discuss this and some other important issues, former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson. Well, John, great to see you. I'm sorry I haven't got some better topics to discuss to lift us up, not drag us down, but I honestly cannot believe we're only 100 years on, not even 100 years on, from when we saw the targeting of Jewish people and their businesses in Germany in the 1930s, but here we are now.
Well, it says something about the curriculum, doesn't it, in our schools? That's the first point. And if we understood the 1930s, we might remember that some of the giants of that age, Roosevelt and Menzies, used to say that their 4 freedoms were critical if people were to live in safety and security. One of them was freedom from fear. If you are fearful, you cannot be free. You cannot reach your potential. You cannot make your maximum potential contribution to your society. And I think this outrageously cowardly way of attacking the people is actually, I've seen it referred to as a sort of digital terrorism. It is reminiscent, is it not, of the terrorism we're watching unfold in the Middle East with Hamas in extraordinary ways, hides behind women and children and dares people to shoot them. There's no courage. And it might be noted that it took this government something like 4 months to declare the outrageous slaughtering of Israeli people on the 7th of October an act of terrorism. Where's the leadership?
You were, obviously, as Deputy Prime Minister, someone who sat around the National Security Committee table. What do you make of the reports today that we're pushing on with these army attack helicopters? We're going to spend $5 billion. The US don't think they're up to speed. They've scrapped the program. We're debating drones. We're not going to get to make a decision on drones, though, we're told, for 8 years. I'm not joking here. There is a move inside Defence to train eagles and other birds of prey to attack drones. That's how backward we are at the moment. And at the same time, we've got more people leaving the Defence Force than joining it. And the world's never been more of a worry.
Every day we hear of more instability globally, more threats globally, more dangers globally. Every day we hear of a further lack of capacity or loss of capacity, a loss of willpower. The point that I would want to make here is that the primary reason that our forefathers gave us a Commonwealth government was the defence and freedom of the Australian people. There's no higher duty. It therefore follows that the primary responsibility of the Prime Minister of the day is the safety and security of the Australian people. He must take control of this mess. General Haig, during the difficult days of World War I, was told by his Prime Minister, Lloyd George, that war is far too important to leave to the generals. The government of the day has its first responsibility, the defence of the realm, the safety of the Australian people. They say there's no constituency for it. There was no constituency, Peter, when we set about winding back debt. There was no constituency for getting our economic house in order. We had to build one. Now we need leadership that will build an environment in which we get serious about looking after our freedoms and our children's freedoms.
A little bit of good news. I'm pleased to bring us some little bit of good news here. Baker's Delight were targeted by voice activists, yes, voice activists, even after that very definitive result, because the owners of Baker's Delight had donated to the no vote cause. But that's actually been their undoing, hasn't it? Because the boycott hasn't worked. And in fact, a lot of people who voted no have come out in support of Baker's Delight.
Absolutely. I'll be looking for an opportunity to go and purchase something at Baker's Delight myself. But it does raise the point, what does it take for people who have these elitist views to recognise that when they deny the voice of the majority, they are behaving in precisely the same way that they condemn amongst those Americans who describe their fellow Australians as deplorables and end up with a divided country. What does it take for people to show a little bit of humility, a little bit of self-reflection and a bit of respect for their fellow Australians?
John Anson, great to have you as always.